Welcome everybody to another exciting, fabulous episode of the Terrorific Talk Podcast, the podcast that aims to answer this question every week: why horror? And we have another awesome guest for you this evening. I will be talking here in a few minutes with Bicycle of Death, who is a Twitch content creator and fellow horror enthusiast and fellow Friday the 13th enthusiast. So, yay! I am so excited to be talking with him tonight. But first, I'm going to be starting with the segment called Brandy Recommends, which is a segment where I recommend a horror film, horror book, any kind of horror-related thing that I think that you should have your finger on and you should be paying attention to. And this week on Brandy Recommends, I am going to be recommending this horror YouTuber by the name of Count Jacula. I was only recently introduced to him by a member of my community in July of last year. I was on one of his shows where we just, for 6 hours, just shot the shit about horror and all sorts of other topics. But he is mainly a horror YouTuber who streams live from YouTube mainly. He also streams on Twitch from time to time. And he also does reviews of horror shows, horror movies. Sometimes, something captures his fancy, like with Bumblebee, he does a vlog about that. And you will also often see him collaborate with another horror YouTuber by the name of the Horror Guru. But the reason why I like Count Jacula so much is that he always has an interesting take on horror. It's very knowledgeable, very well researched, and I really enjoy listening to him because he is funny as hell. So that is my recommendation to you for this week, is the Count Jacula. And if you want to know whereabouts to go for his YouTube, it is youtube.com/user/Planet Dracula. Because his whole thing is, I'm Count Jacula from the planet Dracula. And hello, welcome to the interview portion of the Terrorific Talk Podcast. And with me this evening, I have Bicycle of Death, who is also a Twitch streamer and fellow horror enthusiast. So welcome, sir.
Thank you for inviting me onto the show. It was kind of spontaneous, and I was like, what am I getting myself into?
Well, hopefully you won't want to run screaming in the opposite direction.
Well, it is about horror, so maybe that's exactly what your viewers want.
Yeah, true. So that may end up happening at some point in the episode, everybody, so just be prepared for that. But let's go ahead and get started with, you get to take over for a little bit and you get to introduce yourself. You get to talk about what you do in the content creation world, and just, so take it away, sir.
My online alias is Bicycle of Death, which is derived from two of my favorite things in the universe, pedal bicycles and death metal. I am a former pro-level BMX rider, and I've been collecting extreme metal on physical format since probably 10, 11, 12 years old. And I got into vinyl collecting because of my father, who was a DJ in the 80s. Not one of those fancy DJs, but just some dude who plays music at weddings. And I ended up taking over some of his equipment, and progressively just it's where all my money goes. It's kind of ridiculous. And I'm also I got into streaming with The Division on Twitch, and that's been in my opinion, for something that started off originally as trying to find a way to report cheaters better, so this way I had video. I found out that it's just as easy to record video as it is to stream. So I started with that. Turns out after rewatching some of those cheaters that I caught, I found out that I just suck at Division PvP and stuck with streaming. And I've because of my involvement in the Division community is actually how I got here tonight, which is incredible. The people that I've met through the Division community brought me to it was Grindhead Jim that brought me to That Nerd Violet, and through That Nerd Violet I met Galaxy Graves, and through Galaxy Graves I met you. So
it's like 6 degrees of Twitch almost.
Yep. It's amazing what networking can do. And for some, like I said, something that started off as a way to capture cheaters and report them so they could reap their punishment. It's a beautiful thing. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I love all the people that I've met on Twitch. It's just those that I've met on Twitch and also in the horror community have been nothing short of kind and gracious and awesome. Just like, I love this. Like, I don't know, like, what, where I would be just now, just at this point, without Twitch. And I'm sure that you feel like the exact same way.
Exactly.
Yeah. And, okay. Go ahead.
It's, I can't think of the right word. It's almost like a, not an oxymoron. Maybe. No. Ironic. That's the word I was
There you go. There you go.
It's ironic that you take a horror community, like something that's built on fear, on gore, on violence, on psychological terror. Well, that's fear, but all those elements. And then same thing with death metal. Death metal is kind of like the horror genre of music, and you have all those elements in the music. And you take the people in those communities, and a lot of them are very kind and welcoming, which is really interesting because when you're watching a horror, you're watching people getting slaughtered on the silver screen, and then everybody's like, hey, how'd you like that film? And everybody's so welcoming.
Yeah, like, ironic, I think, would be like the best word to describe it, because you would think like, oh, these people are scary. They're totally like not approachable at all. And I found that to be the exact opposite. So let's see here. I was going to go somewhere else with this, but I lost my train of thought. That often happens on here. My brain just stops. But
it happens.
Okay, I know what I wanted to ask. All right, so you said that you got your start on Twitch with the Division 2, but I noticed that whenever I took like a quick peek at your channel, you also stream like maybe a few games that might be considered scary or just like in the horror genre. So talk a little bit about those types of games that you stream on your channel.
Well, for horror games, there's a lot of elements of games that I've played that the horror element in it is actually what got me attached to the game. Before I go on with the games that I play, there's one that has always stood out to me, and that's Fallout 3. And I'm not a huge fan of the Fallout series ever since it went first person. But there's an Easter egg in Fallout 3 in one of the expansions, and I cannot recall the name of the expansion off the top of my head, but the Easter egg is actually a side quest that takes place in the swamp. Really wish I could remember the name of that DLC, but what it is it's based on the short story Dunwich Manor, or maybe it's Dunwich Horror. I can't remember. It's a short story by H.P. Lovecraft. And the way they were able to convey it into the game, like Fallout 3 really, it never seemed like a game that brought any form of anxiety or fear into me when I was playing it. However, when I started playing that, and Dunwich Horror is actually one of my favorite stories aside from like actual Cthulhu stories by H.P. Lovecraft, and immediately, like within the first couple steps of that quest, I I was like, I know exactly what this is from. And there were parts of that quest that actually made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. And that's something that wasn't able to be done on any of the rest of that game. And I think it's important to appreciate the games that have the tools and utilities to deliver the proper atmosphere for horror. Because there are some games out there that don't necessarily fall under the genre, but still have the capability and side quests or certain storylines in there to properly convey the horror element. And with that, the games that I actually played that could fall under horror is Diablo or Path of Exile. Those are usually pretty morbid settings. Friday the 13th is probably the staple out of all of them. And how I actually started playing that game is I recently started playing it very recently. I was never a huge Friday the 13th fan. I've seen most of the movies. I recently went back and watched all of them. I had myself a Friday the 13th marathon with my cat, and she loved that cuddle time.
I bet.
And how I got involved in Friday the 13th is one of my community members, Grim Kaiser, ended up gifting the game to me, and him and Diabetic Steve just started gifting the game to everybody, and we all got together and we played one night. We're like, this would be fantastic for a stream. And the really cool thing about Friday the 13th, it kind of comes full circle because the community manager for Gun Entertainment, the developers of Friday the 13th, is actually originally from Ubisoft, and he was the former community manager for The Division. And he has been excessively kind with like doing giveaways when we're streaming it on Saturday nights. He's given away multiple copies of the game, so a huge shout out to Matt Shacha. I love you, brother. And Gunn is actually working on another game that I'm thinking about streaming, which is Layers of Fear 2. I have not played the first one. Have you played it?
Yes, I have. Yes,
I know very little about it, and I'm excited. I don't know if the first one's going to be one that I'm going to stream while I play it. I might do that on my own time. Still undecided on that, but I also stream Doom, and the original Doom that came out in 1993. For quite until Resident Evil came out, it was probably, and for the younger generation, they may not see it, but it was probably the scariest game I played up to that point. And I think it's important to remember that up to that point, like there wasn't much immersion in video games. You had a lot of 2D textures, poorly drawn 2D textures, and then Doom puts you in this almost 3D environment. It's actually 2.5D, but we won't get into the technical aspect of that.
We'll just like stretch the truth a little bit.
Yep. And when you're going through those levels and you can actually hear enemies in the distance fighting, you don't necessarily hear echoes, but there's certain acoustic atmosphere triggers in there that really deliver a horrific experience, especially when you're a little how old was I think I was 10. Yeah, I was 10 when it came out. And when you first hear the footsteps of the cyber demon in the second episode, that was probably my sweatiest try-hard moment in gaming history, trying to survive that, getting barraged by rockets. And I think I have an attachment to the series specifically because of that battle. And granted, I'm being a little long-winded here, so I'll just capture the last game that I've been playing that could be considered horror is Gauntlet Dark Legacy. And while that's not entirely, it's not scary at all, the elements of it has like a playful gothic aesthetic to it. you have the Grim Reaper chasing you around every once in a while. The soundtrack is very American McGee-ish, and it's a wonderful game. It got well, not terrible. It got mediocre ratings when it came out, but it's one of those where you can just sit back and just play and not have to think about too much.
Yeah. It's okay to be long-winded because that's what this podcast is about. It's like you can talk for as long as you want because it's really like the horror is kind of like a pretty niche genre. So once you find someone that you can talk to about it, then it's just like blah 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 blah, and it's like it's really 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 cool. Like at least I love blah 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 just in general. But you mentioned the older Dooms, but you didn't mention like the newer one that came out in 2000. Was it 16? Like what were your thoughts on that?
Doom 2016 is a phenomenal game. They were able to take the very action aspect of it where you're just surrounded by hordes of enemies, and if you play on the higher difficulties in the original Doom, like ultra violence, it is packed with enemies. Like you have to be strafing and moving constantly, otherwise you'll get hit and you'll die. And there's always been weapon preferences in the game where people have their certain weapon preferences, and when you play on the higher difficulties, there's kind of a shortage of ammo. Not that you'll run out on all of them, but you'll run out on your favorite weapon. And one of my favorite aspects of the new Doom is the chainsaw. And not only does that have a nice, morbid, grotesque death, but as you're sawing through the demons, it just spews ammo everywhere. So if you run out of ammo, you can just switch to the chainsaw and boom, refill your ammo. Whoever thought of that idea, I hope they get a promotion, and I hope they're paid well in compensation for that idea. Best idea I've seen in a video game in a long while. And that could I could also pedal back and go to Doom 3, and that was in more of the post-2000. I think Doom 3 was probably one of the best horror games, atmospheric-wise, that I have played, but that might be because I'm a Doom fanboy. It did receive a lot of flack because there was no way in the stock game when it was first released to mount the flashlight to the weapon, and the whole time through the game you're switching between your flashlight and your weapon. And there were a lot of complaints about that, and as a video game developer, eventually they ended up switching that. You were able to use the flashlight on the shotgun, machine pistol, and regular pistol in the collector's edition, I think. But as a developer, I always think about the choices that they make and the fact that what are they trying to convey to the player? Because they did that, did they think about mounting the flashlight onto the weapons? Because if you're sitting in a space station and you're a Marine, you've been trained in survivability and utilizing tools around you and basically MacGyvering stuff for survival, I'm sure there would have been some duct tape sitting around where they'd be able to duct tape a flashlight to the side of their shotgun. But with how dark the game was, lighting-wise, and they're showing off the new engine that had real-time shadows in it, which up until that point, a lot of games didn't have that, and they didn't have it optimized as well as the Doom 3 engine did. So that's one aspect of the game that they probably wanted to consider. And if you had to have your flashlight in your hand and had the option of having your weapon in your hand, if you had your flashlight in your hand, you weren't going to be able to fight. You're just going to be able to move around. And with the engine limitations back then, they probably didn't want the player character running around fighting and moving fast with that the lighting effects on, which were a staple of the engine, which made the game what it was and causing slowdown. So eventually, once hardware got better for the computers, they decided to, I don't know if that's actually the reason why they did it, but I'm guessing since it was the #1 requested change in Doom, and there was actually multiple mods for it, when they made the, I think it's called the BFG edition, they just put it in the game. They're like, here you go, community. And the community said, thank you.
I never got the privilege of playing like any of the older Dooms. Doom 2016 was my introduction to Doom, and yes, Vicious, it did have a badass soundtrack.
Yes, it did.
It's like, it just made me, and I don't really like play a lot of shooters, but that music just like, you know what? I am a badass. Pew pew pew. And like, and I just love. I appreciate also how simple the storyline was. Not like in a bad way, but it's just like, here, you woke up. There's a portal to hell open. All these demons are here. Kill them all and close the portal to hell. It's just like, you don't really need like too much more than that.
Yep, Doom was about gameplay, not story.
Yep.
And then when they made a movie out of it, I was just like, what are they doing? There's no story.
Oh no. Yeah, that movie, I don't know like what they were doing with that. It's just like, especially just like the ending sequence, I was like, why?
However, like, the first person sequence through that movie, that was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. That was the when I sat in theaters for that movie, the whole time I was just like, another failure of video game to movie, and shaking my head like, nope, they got that wrong. What are they talking about? Aliens? Mutants? That's not how Doom works. It's a portal to hell. What's going on here? This isn't Resident Evil. And then they went into the first person sequence, and my liking from the film went from about a 3 to a 6.
Is it something that you would watch today, or is it just like a one and done thing for you?
I'd watch it again.
Yeah.
It's I wouldn't be excited about it, but I'd be like, oh, look, sitting in a hotel, oh, Doom's on, I'll watch it.
Oh, so one of those things, like if it was on TV and you had nothing better to do, like, oh, I'll watch it, but it's not like you would willingly put it into a DVD player and watch it yourself. Ah, man.
I downvoted it on Netflix.
It's like, boo.
Give it a thumbs down.
Yeah, because their rating system is very simple too, like thumbs up or thumbs down.
I miss the star ratings.
Yeah, I do too. It's just like, bring those back, because I could at least give, if I hated something, I'd give it like 1 star out of 5, and I'd like feel like some form of satisfaction. Like for, would you consider yourself a huge fan of the horror genre, or is it just something like, well, you know, I like it, I appreciate it, kind of thing?
I'm a fan of the horror genre, but it's always been a passive fandom rather than something that I've actually pursued. Like with Friday the 13th, like I said, I've seen most of the movies before I started playing the game. Then I went back and watched them all. There were there's definite highlights in where my fandom of the genre has peaked. But for the most part, like I said, it's something that usually takes a back seat to other elements. But I mean, you have some films like Event Horizon, which I really liked. I really like the Nightmare on Elm Street series. I think Freddy Krueger is my favorite horror villain ever, because I enjoy dark humor, and just the comedy and the darkness in those movies just went hand in hand so well in most of the films. But as for like sitting around and collecting a plethora of horror movies and stuff like that, that's not something that I do. I don't consistently seek horror video games to play, but there are ones that end up coming to the forefront and demanding my attention, and I'm really glad that I give it to them. Like the original Resident Evil. When I first saw that game played, it was there were 2 kids that I babysat for, and it was Reed and I can't remember the name of the older kid's name, but I ended up putting them to bed, and they lived in a duplex, and their neighbors were one of them was a college kid and the other one was an IT guy, and they left their door open, and it was in the middle of summer. It was ridiculously hot and humid, which I live in the Midwest, so in Wisconsin it happens, but the kind of heat that the temperature was that night was it was above normal. It was hotter than normal. And they had their screen door open. They had a big fan sitting there, and I kept hearing this noise, and it sounded like a door opening. I was like, what the hell's going on? So I'd go out and I'd look around, and the only thing that I could see was street lights, but everything else was completely quiet. And then I'd go back in the apartment or the duplex or whatever, and I'd start hearing footsteps, and I could hear somebody talking, and every once in a while I would hear like just a short like jump scare scream. And what the hell's going on? So I go back outside and I still don't see anything. So eventually I just grab a flashlight and I walk around the building, and I walk past their front door, and everybody screams because they have their front door wide open, and they're so focused on this video game, and they see somebody just like walk past their front door. And I was, it scared me. They screamed, then I screamed because they screamed. And I was like, what are you guys doing? Why do you have your door open? Oh, we just got this game called Resident Evil. You want to come watch it? And at that point, I've never made a habit of going into a stranger's home to watch them play video games, but I'm really glad I did. I sat down, and every hour I'd go back and check on the kids, and then I'd come back and watch them play. And I stayed up all night watching them play Resident Evil. And I watched them play from the first 15 minutes all the way up to the plant boss. And you can get to that pretty quick now, but back then it was like, I don't know, 6 hours for their first playthrough. But just watching all of the puzzle elements in the game, as well as the crazy camera angles and the tank controls on it, where up is forward, I ended up getting a PlayStation a couple months later specifically to play that game.
I remember I played the first one, the second one, which I'm really excited for, like the reboot, remake, yes. Like whatever. Super excited for that because Leon was always like my favorite. And then I played 4. That's why I specifically bought a GameCube, was just to play 4, and I just remember just like played it with all the lights off, and it scared the bejesus out of me. Like, what were your thoughts on Resident Evil 4? Either people really like it or they really hate it. Like,
was that the one that Code Veronica?
I don't think like it was Code Veronica. Resident Evil 4 was with Leon, and where he goes to like rescue the president's daughter.
I have not played that one. The Resident Evil 4 that I'm akin to, I played on the Dreamcast, which was actually called Biohazard Code Veronica.
Oh.
And I believe there was a remake for that one. And the version of the game that I had was a Japanese import. And I think it was the true Resident Evil 4. I'm not actually familiar with the Resident Evil 4 that you're talking about. Let me look it up.
Yes. Yeah, that was the reason like I said, I specifically bought the GameCube for that, because it was a GameCube exclusive.
Oh, no. I've seen that one, but I have not. Oh, yeah. Their show is only for the GameCube. Since you bought a Nintendo GameCube, did you ever is it Eternal Darkness?
I've never played Eternal Darkness.
Let's see here. GameCube. I think it's Eternal Darkness. Sanity's Requiem. It is it's a Call of Cthulhu game that does not have the Call of Cthulhu branding.
Oh.
And I've heard that it is actually one of the scariest games ever made. And I've never played it, and it shows that there is.
Let's see here, Eternal Darkness.
Did they say originally planned for the Nintendo 64. What?
That's whoa.
And it was not a commercial success. I remember that. Like, the game got terrible reviews, but it's one of those games that had a cult following to it.
I've never, like, the name, like, when you said it, it sounds familiar, but I've never played it.
I might have to pick up a GameCube to play this game. I completely forgot about this. This podcast has put me down a rabbit hole. I'm buying a GameCube.
Yeah.
Gotta go on eBay.
Yeah. See, you
buying it right now.
Oh gosh, like, see, yeah, you never know just like what direction that this podcast will go in. Now here he is, like, searching for GameCubes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm gonna buy the game first, and then if I have the game, you can legally emulate it, so I might stream it. But if I can't get the emulation to work, then I'll buy a GameCube and do it that way.
Oh, okay. I don't know what happened, like, to my GameCube, but I really like that console a lot. It was also on that console where I ended up getting Metal Gear Solid, the Twin Snakes, which combine elements of Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2. Metal Gear Solid, of course, is not a horror game, but it's a game that I greatly appreciate because it was one of the first games that I played on the PlayStation, the first one.
The Metal Gear Solid, that was the one that came in the 2-disc case, correct?
That is correct.
That one actually had some really good horror elements in it. Who was the antagonist that had that face mask, and every time he was on the screen, there'd be static, and there was actually the end of the first... Spoiler alert! The end of the first disc, there was that... I believe it was some sort of a torture scene where you actually had to do the whole Mortal Kombat test your might thing, and you had to rapid fire on the keys to stay alive, and if you made it, it went into the second disc, but if you died, the game just ended there.
Yeah, that was torture scene involved.
Psycho Mantis.
Yeah, Psycho Mantis. Yes. I remember that
Cheers
scene.
To you, sir.
Yes, I remember that scene because it just blew my mind where he's like, I'm going to move the controller with my mind, place it on the floor, and it's just like,
yep.
What? Nowadays you're like, okay, it's just like, controller vibrations. Like, but back then it's just like, what? This is pretty cool. I like this. Yep. And then the torture scene, I think, involved, it was Revolver Ocelot who did that.
Was it?
Yeah, Revolver Ocelot. The cowboy.
It's been a while since I played it.
Yeah, it's like the cowboy, that kind of guy. But yeah, like, now that I think about it, just like, even in games that aren't specifically classified as horror, like, sometimes those kind of elements can sneak their way into games.
And I love it when they do, because usually when it's not when you have a game that is not a horror game, and they have some sort of horror element implemented in, and they do it well, it stands out that much more. Which is, in a sense, one of the things I really like about Friday the 13th over Dead by Daylight. Dead by Daylight's an awesome game. I cannot criticize it in the slightest. However, for a horror game, I think Friday the 13th is significantly better because of the atmosphere that it captures. So you have the developer that was able to capture that, but you also, as Vicious and I discussed a while ago, conversation him and I had, Friday the 13th also had the benefit of having that intellectual property already built up. It already had the antagonist built up. It already had soundtracks, sound effects, like all these elements that were ripe for the taking. And then the developers' gun were just implemented it so well. Maybe not right away. When the game first released, I guess there was a mountain of issues with it, but then they had a major patch and fixed a bunch of them. And just a little bit about Friday the 13th in case there's anybody wondering out there. Friday the 13th recently came under fire for not just the video game, the entire intellectual property. came under fire from one of the original writers, I believe, that was suing the IP owners at the time, which was somebody in the film industry. So when that happened, there was a cease and desist for everything Friday the 13th. So you had this brand new indie developer that created this critical hit of a game. Not right away, but after that patch definitely took off. And they have this game that sold a ridiculous amount of copies. It captured a great element of the horror industry, like not only from film but even in video games. The atmosphere in it is beautiful. Like, you actually have the first time I played it, I was actually fearful when I was playing the game. And they cannot release any new content for it at the moment. So they have this they basically have this gem that they can't do anything with. They can polish it a little bit, they can do bug fixes, they can do quality of life changes. Now that the lawsuit's settled, I don't know what's going to happen to it, but I know that there's another major patch release coming that's going to be fixing a lot of bugs in it that were either a cause of the past bug fixes or something that have just slipped through the cracks in the last fix.
I do agree, Vicious. They captured the movies perfectly in that game, and just the overall atmosphere of the movies. And I played that game for like quite a while. But I guess the reason why I stopped playing it was because of that lawsuit. Because I figured, well, no new content's going to be coming out. Like, how much fun is it still going to be? So, but kind of knowing now that the lawsuit's all settled, I kind of kept my ear out, listening, just for but on and off. But now that I know that it's settled, then I might start getting back into that game again, because I really did enjoy it, a lot.
And something to keep in mind with that is, in the gaming industry, especially a small developer like Gun, once they were handed that cease and desist, as a small developer, how do you keep money coming in? Do you keep how do you, business wise, what decision do you make? Do you continue making content for a game that sold very well that you might never be able to release, or do you put that on the back burner and start developing a new game? So there is some content that was near finished. I don't know if it was ever finished to the point where they'd be able to release it. There are some YouTube videos out there about some people hacking the game and getting this content and being able to play it, but it's unfinished. And we may never actually see new content for the game because the programmers for the game have been working on different projects. And I think that's important to remember, and I think that's a very good decision for that indie developer to make is, hey, we want to keep you guys around. We don't want this to be a dead end and then essentially having everybody lose their jobs. And, these people have families that they have to support, put food on the table and stuff like that. So Friday the 13th, the game kind of has its own little horror story in itself. It's an amazing game, but it might be at a dead end content wise, and it'd be really nice to see more content made with it. But the last I heard, which was one of the forum posts by Wes, the head guy at Gun, is they want to make more Friday the 13th content, but even though the lawsuit settled, they're actually directed by a parent company with Friday the 13th as part of their agreement called Horror Inc., I believe, Horror Incorporated. And Horror Incorporated has been trying to get a hold of get permission from the person who owns the Friday the 13th IP now, so that they can release more content. But I guess that the person who owns the IP hasn't even bothered contacting Horror Incorporated at all.
That's a shame. because I know that fans of that game would like to see like new content released, but like you said, because of that, it's kind of at a dead end. But would you still recommend that game to people, and would you still play it, just even knowing that there's that kind of like roadblock there?
The game itself, and I'm gonna kind of go on a little other tangent here.
Okay.
For that, the game itself, the current state that it is in, for $20, I think it offers a significantly better atmosphere than Dead by Daylight. However, the matchmaking system has some issues. So if you have a group of friends to play it with, I would strongly recommend it. If you're still kind of on the fence for it, I'd say wait until the patch fix. If the patch fix, or if the next patch fixes a lot of the matchmaking issues with it, I would still recommend it. However, if you don't have anybody to play with and you just eat content and you need new releases, go with Dead by Daylight. However, something that I want to point out, and this doesn't just pertain to Friday the 13th. It pertains to any game out there. And I often use this comparison with music, so it applies there too. But sometimes new content or a new release isn't required. And what I mean by that is people playing video games these days are usually excited about the next DLC. Like take a look at Destiny. Like the community there is like, what, we ate up all this content. When's the next DLC coming out? And they keep wanting more and more and more. However, when I grew up playing video games, like we didn't get content with video games. We just, it was like, here, this is the game that we have for you. And if it was fun to play, you could put hours upon hours upon hours replaying it. Take a look at Super Mario. People still play Super Mario. You don't need new content for the original new Super Mario games are cool, but people still go back and play the classic Super Mario Brothers, and you don't need anything else. You know what the game is. The platform game is fun as hell to play. It has classic elements in it. Like, hey, do you remember which way to jump through the boss level to get to Bowser in 8-4? And somebody can usually rapid fire, oh yeah, you go through the middle one and the bottom one and the top one. I don't know if that's correct because I always screw it up. But you didn't need new content. It's fun because of what it was. And if Friday the 13th, the game, doesn't see any more new content, that is the category that I would put it in. The atmosphere that it captures, playing it with a group of friends, I only play it one night a week on the stream, and I don't play it outside of the stream because I don't want to burn it out. We didn't play it last night because of I ended up having a veteran friend come over that really needed a friend to talk to, and he took precedence over it.
Absolutely.
But Saturday nights, like it's I've been streaming a little over a year, and I have never gotten the amount of positive feedback on anything as I have with the Friday the 13th streams. So not only is it the game for the success of the channel, not only was it the game, but it's also the people that I chose to play it with. And I think that's something to keep in mind when you're playing a game. Like if you're not having fun because of the people that you're playing with, get involved in a community. And because like I said before, like the reason why I'm here tonight is because of the Division game. And this wouldn't have happened if I did not get involved in the Division community at all. Like if I just continued playing solo and complaining, oh, I don't have anybody to play the missions with, and I just continued complaining about it and didn't try to push my boundaries a little bit and become a little bit more social, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have experienced all the great things that I have in the past year and a half. I wouldn't have met all of the great people that I have in the past year and a half. And it's an absolutely beautiful thing.
I am just, like I mentioned before, I'm so thankful for the people that I have met through the horror community, through Twitch, and just being able also to talk to you. Like you mentioned, it was a very spontaneous thing, very quick. Like, hey, you want to be on the podcast? And you were like, hey, yeah, let's. What time? What day? And it's just like da da da.
Sometimes you just got to roll the dice, see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And now that I know that you play Friday the 13th, I'm always like trying to look for new people like to play play games with. Like, I may have to hit you up.
What platform do you play on?
I do PC for that one. Do you play on console?
PC only.
PC only. Oh.
Yep. I have an Xbox One and a PS4, but I made a decision probably about last August that I was going to end my my purchase of future consoles and games so I could focus specifically on PC, because I'd rather spend more money on games playing it on here than being all over the place. I'd have to buy less hardware. Yeah, as Vicious said, don't expect teamwork. We right now on Friday the 13th, Jason, for newcomers, Jason might seem overpowered, but if you get counselors that actually work together, like Jason doesn't even stand a chance. And that's one of the things that I believe are going to be announced in the new patch are balancing features. And the way that we just a heads up, the way that we play on stream is for entertainment value only. Like if we can create some sort of shenanigans, we do it. And we have a couple people on the team that play. Cat Claus is a riot with her one-liners. We have Nuggets, who just screams at the top of his lungs like some of the silliest stuff ever. And then we have Diabetic Steve again, who like if you were to see pictures of this dude, like this dude is ripped. And if I like guys, I definitely ask for his number. He's good looking, but he screams like a 10-year-old schoolgirl, and it is drop dead hilarious.
Oh man. Well, that's the way I play games like that too. I'm not like, I'm not looking to like get to the higher rank or to like be an expert on it. It's just like, can I have fun with can I have fun with it? If the answer is yes, then full steam ahead. Because I am not a gaming expert by any means.
Something that I'm finding kind of interesting right now is I have the stream up so I can watch chat as well. And one of the people that I'm following is actually playing Resident Evil 4 right now.
Ooh.
What are the odds of that? I think the universe is trying to tell me something.
Yes, like play Resident Evil 4. And it is available.
Is there a PC variant of it?
Yes, it is. It is available on Steam. Yes.
I might be making a purchase right now. You might have to get it on Humble Bundle though, and then get the code on Steam.
Yeah, it's like I don't know like exactly like what the price is on Steam just by itself.
I'm just surprised it's on there. I thought it was a console only game.
Yeah, I guess the port honestly from console to PC is not terrible, and it is. Was that the one that they had to fix the hell out of because the original port was almost unplayable? And then they patched it? I don't know if that was the exact one. I know one of the Resident Evils, the port was really bad, but I don't know if it was 4 or if it was another one. I wanted to say it was like Resident Evil 0, but don't quote me on that.
I have I'm searching for it, and it's on Resident Evil 4 is actually on my ignored list. Whoops.
How dare you?
Ultimate HD edition. Oh yeah, I remember watching this one. This one originally came out on PS2, didn't it?
It originally came out like for the GameCube at first. That's because it was a GameCube exclusive, and then yes, it made the jump to the console, the PS2.
Yeah, I watched my my friend play it because he was He originally was raging that it was a GameCube only game, and the guy was all about the PlayStation. And I actually watched him play this for a little while.
Yeah, no,
So I haven't played it myself, but I've seen it.
you have to play it and experience it for yourself.
Add to cart.
I think most people's complaints about this game were that, oh, it's too actiony, and that's why you saw like Resident Evil 5 and 6 like go in that direction, like the action direction. And it's just like, yeah, like I can people like either really like 5 or hate 5. I hated it. I blocked out even beating that game because I thought it frustrated me so much. 6 was just a raging pile of hot garbage. I didn't even bother with 6. I watched my sister play 6, and that was enough for me. But have you played Resident Evil 7?
No. That game, I have watched many streamers play it.
Oh,
and
okay.
one of the people that I watched play it wasn't... Like, he streams as a hobby, and he rarely streams at all anymore. And he ended up playing that... with his wife sitting next to him by his side, and just having his gamer experience going through and solving the puzzles, and then you had her there for entertainment value because she doesn't like horror movies at all. And Resident Evil 7 it's a scary game. So you had the dialogue between the two, which was very husband and wife-ish, which was entertaining, but they're also a very loving couple, so he'd be there supporting her when she got really fearful, and she'd always tell him a good job once he solved a puzzle. And it was great to watch that element of the relationship work out, as well as progressing through the game. And I ended up buying it for the Xbox One, but I believe I still have it, and it's probably still in the shrink wrap.
Yeah, it's another game. Like, yeah, it's fun to watch, but you definitely need to experience it for yourself as well. My main issues, it wasn't even like really like a major issues, is that the protagonist was a little bit forgettable in my view, but the atmosphere and the stuff surrounding him kind of made up for all that because it was creepy as hell.
I am trying to see if there was a Code Veronica remake that came out, and I'm not finding out what platform it came out on.
Huh. It's a mystery. Ooh.
Oh, it came out on the PS4. If you have one, or you have access to a Dreamcast, I highly recommend playing Code Veronica. Code Veronica is hands down my favorite Resident Evil game.
Code Veronica. I do have a PS4 actually, and I got it specifically for console exclusives. Like right now, I'm playing Spider-Man. So,
yeah, it's $14.99 on the PlayStation Store right now.
Okay.
And that's probably why you never heard of it, is because it was a Dreamcast exclusive.
Oh, yeah. I was never really into the Dreamcast. I had a Sega Genesis, and that was my main console for like a long, long, long time. Yeah, I was a big console person before I got into PC gaming. No.
Two of my favorite, one of them I don't know if you could really call them a horror game. It was an action game, but it had like the comic horror element to it. Chakan, the Immortal Man. That's one of my favorite. Actually, that might be Wizards and Warriors would probably be above that. But my second favorite platformer of all time would be Chakan, the Immortal Man, which is a game that gave you infinite lives, and you used all of them trying to beat the game. It was very difficult. It had a great soundtrack. There was that one, and another one of my favorite horror staples is called Haunting. That was on the Genesis, and I don't know if you've ever played that, but if you still have your Genesis, I highly recommend picking it up. You played I can't even remember the guy's name. He looked like Frankenstein in a leather jacket, and you were trying to scare this family out of their house, and they couldn't see you, but you would walk around and you would try to interact with the environment, and they had all these animations for like stuff in the kitchen, living room, whatever. You could interact with everything, and it would build up their scare meter, and eventually they'd run out of the house. I believe there were 4 houses that you had to do that in. It was absolutely wonderful.
I wish I had still had my Genesis, but it died eventually, like all consoles do. They have their shelf life, and mine lasted actually for about like 15 years before it finally kicked the bucket. And I was so sad. So Chikan, the Immortal Man, and the Haunting. Okay.
And I think there was also a game for the Genesis called Immortal that was a horror-based Dungeons and Dragons isometric game. So kind of a third-person-ish. And I think that also gave you infinite lives because it was ridiculously difficult.
Yeah. I think the true horror game that I first played was on, I forget whether it was for the PS1 or the PS2. I don't remember. I think it was for the one. It was called Dracula, The Last Sanctuary, and it was just, I don't know if you ever heard of that one, but my advice to you is don't bother.
Oh, that one. Was that a I remember seeing this. Was that by the same team who did the Bram Stoker's games?
That I could not tell you, but all I remember of that game was I liked the atmosphere. I liked the fact because I was the type of person that would just read. I would read for fun. I still do. And I read Dracula, and I thought that game evoked the overall Victorian aspect of Bram Stoker's novel, which I thought was excellent. But the puzzles were... Like, you needed a walkthrough just to get through that entire game. It was ridiculous.
Here it is. It says it's this game is a sequel to the unofficial sequel to Bram Stoker's Dracula. So it's a sequel to the video game Dracula Resurrection. And I misspoke. I didn't actually mean Bram Stoker's. I thought it was the Clive Barker games. Like Alone in the Tower, I think it was. That series of games. I thought it was the same developer who did it, but now I'm gonna have to go and look at that. So it looks like it has a very similar aesthetic, but that might just be because it was on the PlayStation, and each era of gaming seems to have a certain aesthetic to it.
Yeah.
Alone in the Tower game. Is it Alone in the Tower? Is that the right one? Alone in the Dark. There we go.
Yeah, it was Alone somewhere. I just don't remember whether it was Dark, whether it was Tower, whether it was something along those lines.
Let's see here. Thought there was a bunch of the... Yeah, there's one for the original PlayStation, which was... There's Jack in the Dark. That's PC. Alone in the Dark 3, PC. Windows 95. Oh my goodness. Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare. Here we go.
God, now I feel old of Windows 95.
I still remember Windows 3.1.
I don't remember that one.
It's a good thing you don't remember it. Publisher, Infrogame. Designer, platform, publishers. Nope. I am incorrect. Oh well. Now I know. Now I know I'm wrong, so it's good.
One person in my chat said, speaking of Clive Barker, he had a killer FPS horror game too. Clive Barker's Undying.
Clive Barker's Undying.
Yeah,
I think that was part of the Condemned series. Let me look at this. Undying. That one looks like it might have been on... Oh, that was only on Windows. Really? On the Unreal Engine. Yeah. Have I played this one? Oh, yeah, I've played this one. This is the one that had that really... It took a really long time to... Yeah, holy cow. This brings back a lot of memories. This was a good game. However, yeah, reception, it was received or reviewed as favorable. However, yeah, that's the same time that Return to Castle Wolfenstein came out. And I fell in love with that game.
Yeah, I haven't played any of the old, like, Wolfenstein games, like, at all. Like...
There was a Wolfenstein game that you can't actually purchase anymore. I think it's just called Wolfenstein, and it was developed by Raven Software, who now help make Call of Duty games. And the really neat thing about the Wolfenstein universe is it takes a very occult aspect from it, because the Nazis during World War II were actually like part of their human experiments and whatnot. They actually tried to figure out a way to make super soldiers. So that's where all the genetic testing comes in. And not only that, they also tried to resurrect the dead and tried to make undead soldiers. And they were actually searching the world for all of these old artifacts. And this Wolfenstein, I'm going to have to look up which Wolfenstein game this was. I think it's something that was only on Xbox 360, maybe. And here we go, Wolfenstein 2009. It's co-developed by Raven. Yep, that was it. It was on Windows, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360.
Okay.
And it had a very occult aspect to it. Some of the weapons actually dealt with that. And where was I going with that? During World War II, I think it was the Russians who actually were able... I don't know if they were officially able to, but they actually had a dog that they either pieced together or that was dead, and they got it's been dead for a long while, so it wasn't something like it's like, oh, somebody's dog died, let's see if we can resurrect it. They had it hooked up to all this stuff, and they had it back alive for I think 8 seconds.
Ew.
Yeah, there might be a video on it on YouTube. I don't know if it's been debunked, but that's just me just pulling information that I've obtained over the years. I don't know if it's if it was one of those things that somebody cleverly made up, but apparently, to my knowledge, that's happened.
Yeah, I didn't know about the whole fact how during World War II the Nazis were involved in, like, you know, the sick kind of human experiments. So I knew, like, that aspect of it, but it's just like, sick. That's sick. Wait. Okay, Grindhead Jim says, wait, undead Nazi dog, that needs to be a band name or something.
Yep.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, Glav, they were involved, like, in, like, the occult, like, in the finding of all the occult artifacts and stuff like that. That's not just, like, a story that's made up. They were actually, interested in that. It was weird. It was so weird. Yeah. Oh, yeah, as far as Wolfenstein, I only played the New Order. I haven't played the New Colossus or anything like that, but I really did, like, enjoy the New Order. I thought that was pretty cool. Like, the whole
What kind of... Go ahead.
Oh, they had, like, the base on the moon, like, because, like, they always want to, like, do, like, space travel before anybody else. It's just, like, that was pretty interesting, seeing a base on the moon.
What kind of first-person shooter games do you like? Do you like the more shooter style, or do you like the ones that tell more of a story?
I tend to like ones that tell more of a story. So it's not just like, oh, here's this shooter, now you're in it, go play it. Because that's the reason why the Call of Duty games, going off on this tangent, that I liked Black Ops the best, because it did have that secret like government like spy almost aspect story to it. And then of course it has Call of Duty Zombies, which I love zombies. So yeah, those are the kinds of shooters that I tend to like the most. Not just ones where it just drops me in, like, shoot things. Why? Just because. The only exception to that rule is Left 4 Dead 2.
The reason why I bring that up is because there was a standalone game for the newer Wolfenstein games called Wolfenstein: The Old Blood.
Okay.
And that game it's a first-person shooter, but the Wolfenstein community was actually pretty disappointed with it because it was less of a shooter and it was almost like a first-person strategy / story game. There were a lot of shooter elements in it, but like you originally start out the game as BJ Blazkowicz, and you're in a wheelchair. You're paralyzed from the waist down, so you're actually crawling through. Spoiler alert, you start off the game crawling through a Nazi prison, and I won't give too much of it away, but you have the start of the game, you have to escape this prison, and you're crawling through the air vents, and again, going back to the horror aspect, like you're watching these prisoners be punished by getting eaten alive by dogs as you're crawling through the air vents trying not to get attacked by them. And the whole element of being paralyzed from the waist down and having to make it through this, it's one of the modern games that I actually thought was pretty terrifying, and the developers conveyed the terror that BJ experienced in that prison very well. It's awesome.
Yeah, I've written that down, like all the ones that you have recommended, so I could like definitely like take a look at that. But yeah, that would be terrifying. The fact that not only you're paralyzed from the waist down, but you want to get out of this sick place, and plus there's dogs like eating people alive. Like you really can't do anything because you're paralyzed from the waist down. You're having to hear all that, and ew.
And you don't get. I don't believe you actually get a weapon. For a while in that game, it's almost all like survival horror and puzzle solving for the first portion.
Oh, wow.
And
so do people...
That's why Go ahead.
You know, do people try to attack you in the game, like, before you even, like, everyone... Oh, Jesus. So it's also, like, using your brains to, like, also not only solve puzzles, but also, like, to not get noticed or attacked.
Exactly. Okay. And if you're okay with me going on a little bit more about some of the aspects in the game, I'd absolutely love to.
Yeah, absolutely. Grindhead Jim says, I swear, Bike needs to be a game community manager. Dude could sell any game to anybody.
I would probably quit my job at the railroad to become a community manager for a product that I believed in. Yeah. I would take the pay cut because I'm pretty sure it'd be a pay cut for that. Yeah. But might be less travel. I'd be able to be home and stream more. Yeah. It's something that people may not know about community managers, though. How a lot of community managers have gotten their job is through streaming or their involvement in the community there. And it has been kind of a bane for some community managers because they got popular on the game that they became a community manager for. And if you become a community manager for that game, you cannot monetize off the game because it becomes a conflict of interest. So they can no longer stream the game that made them popular.
Yeah, it's kind of catch-22 there.
Yep. And it sucks. Like that That's something that I actually applied for a community manager position in Malmo, Sweden for Massive Entertainment, which is the developer of The Division 2. And I found out they weren't looking for a community manager. It was a community developer, which is a tier or two above a community manager. So, but I'd pursue it. I'd throw an application in, roll the dice, see what happens. If I decided not, I could always say no. I think risk taking is something more people should do more often. Like if just like if there's somebody out there listening, they're like, I'd consider streaming. I'd consider it. Just do it. You don't need a camera to do it. You can do it with a cheap headset. Hit that live button, get it going, see what happens. You never know. Never know who you meet.
Yeah, like I started streaming with just a laptop that was not made for game streaming at all, and it was a Xbox 360 headset hooked up with a mic. It was hooked up to the controller, and that's where I got started, all because I just like watched someone, and I was like, like I could do this, and here I am, almost 4 years later.
And it can be pretty draining. That's something that I watch people. I was like, oh, you're just playing video games with the camera on? Anybody can do that.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, after you stream, some days you're just absolutely beat. And before stream time, sometimes like, do I have the energy for this tonight? But back to Wolfenstein: The Old Blood. During that first portion of the game where you don't have a weapon, I can't remember the names of the enemies that they have walking around, but they're these giant guard robots that have miniguns mounted to them. And they're set out on a certain path because they have to be hooked up to this electrical system so that they're powered. So kind of think of it like almost like a tram system where they have a rail that they have to follow. And so you have the survival horror, but also the stealth game element where you see exactly how these things are routed and you have to make your way around this. And there are certain puzzles to turn off the power, but that power is only temporary. And I believe if you down one of these enemies, which they make it ridiculously difficult to do, you can actually temporarily use their minigun. I might be mixing this up with one of the other games, but I'm almost positive that's an element in it. And just the variety that they give you to work your way through this game, and that's one of the things I liked about the new Wolfenstein games is they weren't necessarily run and gun like the old game. You could go through and you could play it. You could play it stealth. You could just go in guns blazing. You could do a mix of it, and going through the stealth element, I think Return to Castle Wolfenstein, RTCW, has one of the best stealth missions in any game ever, and it's one of the missions where you're giving the Silent Sten, which is a English submachine gun, and you have to actually escape from the castle to go to the next portion. And when you're going through the actual camp, just it's one of the first games besides the Thief games to really convey the element of stealth in a video game.
Yeah.
I like going on tangents.
No, that's perfectly fine. Stealth, it just depends like on the game. Some games I'm really good at it, and other times I can only stay hidden for like maybe like 5 seconds before I get noticed. It's like, well, shit, how did they notice me? Like maybe my foot was sticking out like or something. I don't know. But is the stealth ridiculously hard in that game, or is it just basically like
It's not ridiculously hard, but if you don't know that you're supposed to be going through it stealth, which if you watch the cutscene, they flat out tell you you're gonna have to go through it stealth. It's it brings the sense of anxiety, but it's not difficult.
Okay, because Stealth could sometimes freak me out, depending, because I'm the type that just wants to, like, well, it's gonna be faster to, like, shoot everybody.
Yeah.
Let's just kill everybody and get it over with. But if it comes to the level where I do have stealth, like, okay, I have to be patient now. It's like, it's hard, but I could do it.
A game or games that come to mind where some games have a story mode to them where they decrease the difficulty. And I kind of appreciate that aspect because there's some really good games out there that have a really good story to it, but the game mechanics are not exactly what the the player actually wants. And I go and I think about that, and some of the old games like the Baldur's Gate series, which were done by the developers that created the original 2 Fallout games, they're heavily, or actually they are Dungeons and Dragons games, but the original Baldur's Gate, the sequel, Baldur's Gate 2, the longest playthrough of any single non-multiplayer game that I played was that game, and it was 260 hours for one playthrough.
Wow.
And there's some elements in there, and back to the horror aspect, there's a character called Bodhi in there who's actually a vampire, is one of the most well-written enemies I've encountered in a game. Best damn RPGs ever? Absolutely, I agree with that statement. I think back on those games, and I think the new enhanced editions actually have what's called a story difficulty, where it's not difficult. But the whole point of the game, aside from the rich story to it, is the aspect of playing it kind of like a strategy game. Like, it's meant, every encounter is supposed to be like a puzzle. So if you take the element of the difficulty out there, and you're basically, just point and click and boom, you win the encounter and on to the next, you still get that story experience, but I find it's less rewarding, or I think it would be less rewarding than going through and like having this random encounter pop up when you're trying to fast travel from point A to point B, and being able to work with the different abilities with your party to overcome these enemies. And I think that's something that's really cool about D&D in general, is being able, the stories you create through the actual encounters. So mind flayers, beholders, dragon. Yep.
Yeah. Like fucking beholders, dragons, mind flayers.
Yep. Sometimes you just have to run away.
Yeah, running away is a valid option. Also running in circles. That's also a valid option as well.
And speaking of Dungeons and Dragons, I haven't played the Ravenloft setting, which is the horror setting. I've never played an actual pen and paper game of that. However, there is the Neverwinter Nights Persistent World servers, which kind of act like a scenario like EverQuest or World of Warcraft, where you can always log on and play.
Okay.
However, with Neverwinter Nights, it's heavily role-playing based. And if there's anybody out there that has never played Dungeons and Dragons and wants an authentic Dungeons and Dragons experience, I highly recommend picking up Neverwinter Nights and getting involved in one of the what's called a persistent world community. And there is one for Ravenloft, and I cannot remember the name of it, but they take the low amount of resources that the original Neverwinter Nights had, and they take the community expansion pack, which the community created assets for the game, and they bring this world to life. And being able to go into these worlds and play the game, and just standard game mechanics, is really fun. But being able to actually role play in real time with other players, and you don't do it over voice chat, like it's all text based with that interaction, but it's still a third person game. It's an absolutely beautiful experience. I believe I've put more hours into playing Neverwinter Nights online in persistent world communities than I have in the entirety of the 7 years that I dedicated to World of Warcraft.
Wow.
I played the old gold box ones. Nice. D&D.
Right. Yeah, D&D. I only think I ever played one session in D&D. And it was online. I don't remember, like, it was, for Tabletop Simulator. And yeah, the person running the campaign was just like, it ended up being a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, but that's like the one and only time like I ever played Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, if you don't have the time to dedicate to the pencil and paper variant and you enjoyed yourself, I think it's one of the internet's hidden treasures is the Neverwinter Nights Persistent World experience. Actually, now that the Enhanced Edition came out, I have no idea why I have not gotten back into it. You do not need a powerful computer for it. There's actually an Android and iPhone client for Neverwinter Nights Enhanced Edition, and they're making it so like that's the amount of hardware that you need to actually run this game. You can play it on just any standard laptop now, because the modern laptops are more powerful than the hardware that they needed back in 2000 when the game came out, 2002.
Wow.
And the developer for the Enhanced Edition, Beamdog, does community streams every Friday, and just seeing the progression, like I'm not taking part of the community in that community at all right now, but I still go back and I have Fridays off, so I watch these streams, and just the way the developer is interacting with their community and adding features that the community's requesting so that these persistent world servers can thrive, it's nothing short of beautiful. They are the pinnacle of what a community-driven developer is doing.
So, yeah, you've recommended like a lot of good games tonight that I have put on my list. So, yeah, finding Code Veronica, Wolfenstein The Old Blood. I'll look into Neverwinter Nights as well, because that looks because I really did enjoy myself with that D&D campaign. So,
let's see here. Oh, here it is. I'm going to post this link in your chat. They have a dedicated website for this persistent world. It's called Ravenloft Prisoners of the Mist.
Okay.
And like just looking through their website, do they have, like, if you go to the about section, like, you can see how basic the actual visuals are, but having what's called the community expansion pack, and having all these different elements that they're able to add to the game and create a game that doesn't look that much better than the original EverQuest, but that player interaction and giving you a plethora of tools to work with, not only to do battle against enemies, but to interact with other players in a role-playing experience. There is legitimately no game that does it better than Neverwinter Nights Persistent World elements. And like I honestly wish I had the words to convey how special this experience was to me. Like, I legitimately mean it is one of the internet's hidden gems.
Yeah, so definitely look into that. And I will be too if you like D&D. And damn it, I lost my thought. Yeah, it's about probably like the millionth time this has happened, but yeah. Look into it if you don't like D&D. Yeah, BicycleofDeath is one of the internet's hidden gems.
Oh, shucks.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
Not only on the internet, sir. I'm real.
Yeah.
I'm real.
So, let's see here. Trying to. Oh, okay. All right. I think I got my question, and well, I'll probably have to start wrapping up stuff soon. Not because I want to, but because my stomach really hates me right now, and I forgot. Oh yeah, I haven't even eaten dinner yet. So like, no wonder. Sometimes I forget. Like, yeah. Brandy, how could you forget to eat? It happens. But so if you were going to be recommending, someone says, I want just like a really good overall like horror game that has a good story, a good atmosphere, good mechanics, but I don't know which one to like pick. Like, what would you recommend? And then, so what would you recommend to them? I know it's kind of a loaded question.
That I know I have a recommendation for this, and I know as soon as I get done with my spiel for a different recommendation done on the spot, I'm going to regret recommending the game that I do. I know there's been, I'm looking through my stream playlist or my Steam games right now, and I know there's one that I'm going to be forgetting. There's the Hexen series, which was first person back in the 90s. Specifically horror. If I were just to wing it and shoot from the hip and go with something that can be played on a modern computer that isn't too old, I would probably go with the first Stalker game, Stalker Shadows of Chernobyl, which is a first-person shooter.
Okay.
But it takes place on the Chernobyl nuclear site, like very much after the fact. There's a lot of survival elements in the game, but there are also it's also a first-person shooter. Like there's AK-47s that you pick up to battle monsters, but it's one of those games that has a cult following where the community actually got together to make patches for because it was so buggy. And the graphics are a little dated with it, but it's one of those games that there's no experience like it.
Yeah, good, but a fairly hard game.
Yes,
like, yes.
It is difficult.
Yeah. And I can forgive outdated graphics if the atmosphere and the story surrounding it is good. Like, I will revisit Metal Gear Solid right now. Yeah, the graphics are, by today's standards, crap, but I forgive that because I just enjoy the story and like behind it so much. So yeah, like dated graphics don't bother me at all.
I'm kind of tempted to recommend Doom 3. However, once you get over the fact that you have to switch between your flashlight and the weapon, it's just a scary shooter game, and Stalker has more elements to it than just being a shooter, which is why I chose that one. I don't date graphics. I put a ring on them.
Wait. Zing. Ah, man. Like, yeah, you're very punny, Jim. You're very punny.
But going back to Eternal Darkness for the GameCube, I have not played it myself. I've watched people play it, and from what I understand, that is legitimately one of the scariest games ever made. And you could also go back with the original Silent Hill game, but seeing those two played, I believe Eternal Darkness takes the cake because of the fear aspect that's actually built in the game. There is a portion of it, or not even a portion, through the entire game you actually have to battle with the player character's fear level too. Like, if they become too fearful, it's almost like a health meter where they will die of fear. And being a H.P. Lovecraft inspired game, like, it gets pretty crazy.
Yeah, Lovecraft is pretty like crazy, like with his like, of course, like he made up Cthulhu. On that note, one that I would a game I recommend. It's a newer one. It just came out like, I wouldn't say like recent, but a couple months ago. It's Call of Cthulhu the game.
Yes.
So have you played that one?
No, I've been watching streamer Sangra Vampira play it, and it's good.
it's got the Lovecraftian atmosphere. It stays true to it. It actually feels like you picked up like Lovecraft's novel and are reading the story, and it's got like different directions like you could take it in. Like the ending I got is not necessarily the ending that maybe other people got, but I liked it nonetheless.
It's a game that seems like it's the true Lovecraftian experience.
Yes.
There have been a couple Cthulhu or Lovecraftian games that have been released in the past that they're good, but they leave something to be desired. And the new Call of Cthulhu game is one that hit the nail right on the head and drove it home. It's a beautiful game. It's a terrifying experience, which is good because that's what the game was designed to do. On that note, a game that I was actually pretty disappointed in that I wanted more from was Agony. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
heard of it.
Yeah, you were essentially somebody. You were a lost soul in hell that was trying to escape, and the idea and the concept of the game seemed awesome. The trailers for it were awesome, but the actual delivery of the experience was. Hopefully, they do better for the next game.
Yeah, some ideas, they're like, these are really great ideas, but the execution is somewhat lacking. And that sounds like that was a victim of that. Yeah, which is, that's a shame. That's a shame. Because, yeah, I would have played a game like that had the execution maybe been a little bit better, but you already, like, watched it or played it for me, so I don't have to. That's what, like, we streamers tend to do sometimes. We play games, so maybe you don't have to.
That's where I was with Resident Evil 7.
Yeah.
Yep, great game. I loved watching it play, but that's all I needed with it.
That's fair. Some games are just like that, where all you really want to do is watch it, and then that's enough. You don't really need to play it yourself. But if it gets to the point where you do want to play it yourself, I would highly recommend it.
I'm probably going to take you up on that.
Ding! All right, so let's now go ahead and start winding things down. My stomach really hates me now. It's like, eat! Like, okay, will you just hold on for a few minutes? Oh, I will ask a chat if they have any questions for you. And while, like, maybe they're thinking some up, why don't you talk about kind of pimp yourself out in a sense. So your social media, your Twitch channel, when do you usually stream, and when's the next time you're going to stream?
The next time I'm going to stream is probably going to be on Thursday. All of my stream times are posted on my Twitch, which is twitch.tv BicycleofDeath, because for some reason Bicycle of Death has been taken by another Twitch user, but if you Google Bicycle of Death, only I show up.
Okay.
And Fridays are usually random. Saturdays are 8 p.m. Central, and Saturday nights are the Friday the 13th streams, which it's a division-based stream channel most of the time, but that Friday the 13th has taken the cake for popularity. And then Sunday nights I usually try to stream around 6 p.m. I did not stream at all this week for personal reasons, and then last night my friend that needed a friend. And I'm also on Twitter. My Twitter channel, my Twitter page is mostly stream-based, but there's a little personal stuff on there. And I'm also on Instagram. Most of that's just pictures of my records. And both of those are Bicycle of Death, all spelled out, all one word. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so you're pretty easy to find everywhere.
Yep.
Which is good, because some people it's just like, okay, on Twitch I'm this, and then on Twitter I'm this totally different name, and then on Instagram I'm also this totally different name. It's just like, don't confuse me. I'm confused enough as it is. So
I've been doing a little headhunting on Twitch TV, because that other Bicycle of Death account has been inactive for over a year, but they haven't closed it out yet. So I've been like, hey, get on this so I can have that name. And I've been been getting a little bit more persistent with it. So hopefully that proves to be fruitful. I would like it if it was.
Yeah, like my Twitch name ended up being I was Brandykins 1982 for the longest time. Someone else had already taken Brandykins, and once I saw that was available, I jumped right on it because I was sick of logging in with numbers all the time at the end.
Yep.
Because that was my hobbyist name. It wasn't my taking this seriously name, I guess, if you want to call it that. I don't know.
And since you're allowing me to essentially pimp myself out, I do have a merch store on designbyhumans.com/shop/BicycleofDeath. And there is a design on the store called Survival. And what it is it's a picture of a female player character taking out another player in what's called the Dark Zone in the game, which is the PvP aspect. And it has the Bicycle of Death logo on the top, and it has the Rogue Agent logo around it. And the whole point of that shirt design was to express my support for females in the gaming community, because they do experience that. I'm sure you know, ladies experience a hell of a lot of harassment, and there's enough harassment on the internet, which I think is complete bullshit. And to authenticate that support, all profits from that shirt are matched and get donated to the Joyful Heart Foundation every month. And now that I say that, I don't think I've done January yet. I'm gonna have to go back and look. And I post what we donate on Twitter every month. And what the Joyful Heart Foundation is it is a charity and a community that gets heavily involved with helping victims of physical, emotional, or sexual abuse recover. And they get involved with a ton of stuff. They do things like their Twitter page. They get involved with the legal rights of victims of sexual abuse. In New York, they were a part of getting a new law pushed where rape kits could no longer be pushed into a backlog. Like, they had an expiration date where they had to be taken care of. So it's not only is it, just a name where they say, hey, we do this. There's actually something going on with it. There's progression, like there's factual progression in what they're doing. So that's something that means a lot to me, because I have a lot of ladies in my community, and I think it's absolute bullshit that they have to put up with the stuff that they do in the gaming community and real life. And I want that to change, and I don't want it to just be a lip service.
That is an awesome, worthwhile organization to be dedicating the sales of that shirt to. And so again, if people want to go to buy a shirt to support Joyful Heart, give out that website again. So where would they need to go to?
It's designbyhumans.com/shop/Bicycle of Death. And if you just went on the Design by Humans site and just typed in Bicycle of Death, it'll pop up.
Okay, so you can either take the long way and make more work for yourself, or you could go to Design by Humans. Yeah, or the short way, which I tend to make things harder for myself, and people tell me that I shouldn't, and then later on it's oh, I could have done it that way. Well,
it happens.
Yeah,
it happens.
I tend to overthink things sometimes. But yeah, let me look and see if I have missed, even kind of scroll back up to the very beginning. Let me look and see if I've missed any questions or comments directed specifically towards and it looks some members of your community have visited to show their support, which is also awesome to see. Just here in chat, it doesn't look like that. So it looks like most of the questions and comments that they have, we've taken care of during the podcast, from what I can see. I always feel bad.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Because if I started answering them, it might go on for an hour.
Yeah, I would have gone on for a lot longer, but again, my stomach's just like, eat brandy. I'm like, fine, okay, it's finally gotten to that point. But yeah, I could have gone on.
Food is good.
Yeah, food is good. I could have gone on for hours too, but alas, as they say, all good things must come to an end. So once again, Bicycle Death, thank you so very much for taking time out of your evening, this evening, to talk with me about horror stuff and games, and I greatly appreciate you.
And thank you for the invite, and thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely. I will have to hit you up about Friday the 13th and sneak my way in there sometimes. And before we finally sign off, any last final words?
I think I'm going to get some food too. I'm pretty hungry.
Yay! Like me talking about food has made you hungry now.
Yep. Way to go.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Brandy. All right. You take care. And yep, someone in my community says, nice to meet you, sir. So.
Nice to meet you as well, Glav.
Yeah.
I appreciate the interaction.
Yeah. And I know I will definitely be talking with you again, so it's not a goodbye, but I will talk to you later.
Adios.
Adios. Once again, I want to thank you all for listening to this week's episode of Terrorific Talk. And once again, thank you to Bicycle of Death for coming on. I greatly appreciate you. And I appreciate Bicycle of Death's community for coming out and supporting the podcast as well. And also thank you to my community. You will find this episode in about a week on anchor.fm/Terrorific Talk and on my YouTube at youtube.com/Brandykins. Also, if you want to become a patron of the Terrorific Talk podcast, go to patreon.com/Brandykins to find the different levels and tiers that you can support. So to all of you out there, stay terrific, everyone, and bye-bye.